Okay. All right, almost everybody's here, and if they're late, well, that's on them. So I want to welcome everybody. Hi, everybody from where everybody is. I know people as far as California and Florida and Washington and all the way in Cherry Hill and Philadelphia. So I really appreciate you all coming to my Live Thesis program today called Immediate Family. Couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You can use the chat feature. I don't know if I'll be able to see it, but we can try using that. We'll see if that works, or raise your hand or just talk if you have comments. Turn off your mic while the session is running. If you need to leave this session to attend to people or animals, big or small, that's fine. I'll be recording the session and putting it on my Google Drive so that you can view it later, anything that you missed. And also, for crib notes for the test, Les. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So the session is scheduled for about 90 minutes. I don't think I'm going to need that much time, but we can take about a 5-minute break about halfway through so y'all can fill your wine glasses or what have you. So that's just kind of where we're sitting at the moment. All right, I'm going to try to get this screen sharing up, so bear with me for a minute. James, I hope it works like before. All right, can you all see this? Just give a thumbs up. All right. Okay, so my session today is immediate family, or a few tips on how to make better images of the children in your life. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Walters. I'm an MFA candidate at Moore College of Art in the Socially Engaged Studio Art program. I'm graduating in just a few weeks, so let's see if we can make that happen. I promise I will be turning in my thesis, Daniel Tucker. I know you're out there listening. So the purpose of this session today is part of my master's program, and part of the work that we're doing is we also have to do an education component, which for those of you who know me, I've been a teacher for a long time. And so this was just kind of an extra fun thing I get to do. Also note, it's never too late to go back to school to take any classes or earn a degree. Going back to Moore at 47 years old really has been like the joy of my life, being able to experience this all over again and to really just be again and just enjoy being in school and all the rigor and be inspired as an artist. It's been so much fun. So I would highly suggest it to any and all of you just to take classes and keep your brain sharp. So a few things about me. I have my Bachelor's of Science from Drexel University in photography from 1998. I went to Moore College in 2000, graduated in 2000 with my art ed cert. And I taught high school at Abington Friends, Marion Mercy Academy, William Penn High School, and Philadelphia Electrical and Technology Charter High School up until I had Gabe. And then I've taken some time off to do the mom gig, which has informed my practice, as you will see, completely and wholly. On the left-hand side, you'll see the picture of me. Second grade, my brownie picture. I knew I always wanted to be an artist. The picture from the next grade was me with my classroom behind me. I always wanted to be a teacher. And that was just always something I wanted to do. And that's the plan of what happens after this, hopefully. So during this session, I'm going to be sharing work from my own portfolio, but also the work of other photographers that I admire and that are sources of inspiration for me. But the first tip that I have for you, if you want to make better photographs, is to really just start looking at photographs. Now, I know as a culture and society, we're sort of awash in photographs, a lot of really bad photographs. But if you dig into the Instagrams or go to the art museums, follow photographers whose work you like, you will find that you're making better pictures just by kind of figuring out what is that they're doing that you like, and try to copy that idea. And by looking at work, the more inspired you get to start making your own work. So I want you to think about what you like about these pictures, what's drawing you to them. And for me, I've always been a portrait photographer and a documentarian. And for those of you who've known me a long time, I work at Drexel, where I photograph the underground rave scene in the late 1990s. And I've since documented many, many of my students at schools in the Philadelphia area. As the yearbook advisor, I was sort of the person with the camera in my hand at all times. And when I had my boys, it was a no-brainer that I was going to turn my camera on them. And the work that you're going to be seeing is from the past 10 years of documenting their growth, but also how the COVID pandemic affected them and other children, and my recent body of work, the Neverlands, which just was on view at the galleries at Moore as part of our thesis exhibition. As a matter of practicality, all the images you are seeing were shot on either my iPhone, a Leica, or my Canon 60D. If you have a question about which was shot with which, I'll be more than happy to answer that for any of you. But everything I do today, you can replicate. You do not need a fancy or an expensive camera to do this. I'm doing any of the tricks I'm doing, you can do at home, you can do on your phone, you can do on your Photos app on your laptop. It's all possible. So there's little to no post-production work, little cropping of the images. There's absolutely no Photoshop, even if there looks like there's not, I guarantee it. All the images were shot straight. That means that they were unfooled around with. They're shot just as you see them. The only thing I did to them were typically the things photographers do that I would have done in the darkroom, adjusting with corrections for contrast, exposure, burning and dodging highlight and shadow areas. So all I've done, like I said, again, it's possible you can do it in your camera or on your Photos app and your desktop. So let me introduce you to two of my models, Gabe and Nate. I just had to change their ages. Gabe just turned 12. And I just want to thank them publicly. They've been very generous with their time and their figures and just being patient with their mothers at a camera in their face their entire lives. And they're so used to me taking pictures, I don't even think that they notice anymore. It's just something that mommy does. So I'm really lucky that they've been generous up until this point to let me do this. So let me get started. The camera is an instrument that teaches people how to see without a camera. So this quote is by Dorothea Lange. She's an American photographer. The name may sound familiar. You may have seen her work. Her work is The Migrant Mother. It's the iconic photograph that people think about when they think about the Great Depression. Why am I showing this particular photograph here, other than the fact that it's a very weary mother with her children? It's thinking about that a photograph doesn't just happen. It's not like a one and done. Dorothea Lange had a large medium format camera, and during her work that she worked during the Great Depression, she was hired by the Farm Securities Administration to make work of people during that time. She photographed this woman with 6 frames. That's it. And you will notice that in each frame, she gets progressively closer to the subject, and she got more intimate, and her subjects are better composed within the frame, and the outcome is more remarkable. The closer, more intimate she got, the more interesting the picture becomes. We know a little bit about this photograph in the way that she may have asked the mother to pose in a particular way. That at this point, it's neither here nor there. The photograph is so incredibly iconic. But I want you to think about when you shoot, don't just take one and done. Shoot many. If there's a subject that you like, get it from different angles. Go close, get far. Shoot from very far away to get the entire scene. Think about what you're looking at and what draws you to a particular person that you're looking at. These photographs also created an incredible sense of change within the United States. Once people started seeing what was happening to others, greater social change was able to be made. And I think that's the power of photography, that, through the images we see, change can happen. And you never know when that image is going to happen. That's going to be the change agent. So I want you to think about your social media feeds and how we're seeing photographs today, how we're encountering them. What I want you to think about is the stories that you want to tell and your own reasons for taking pictures, whether they're children or people on the street or your animals or even street scenes or nature, whatever. Are we shooting for our own history and for our own reasons, or are we shooting for Instagram and Facebook for likes? in the social media world? And if so, what images that you're shooting are you putting out there? Or which ones just stay in purgatory on your hard drives forever and ever and ever and never get printed and don't get hung in your homes? How many times have you spent time going through your parents' or family's photo albums? And will your kids be able to have that same joy of being able to see pictures in that way? This is my encouraging you to print your pictures. You don't need to print them large, just print them small, get them printed in books, do Snapfish. There's a million ways to print them inexpensively, but just to have them printed so your children will have something, a legacy, because I can tell you, dealing with hard drives further down the road, whether or not it's compatible, you may lose these images forever. And to lose that history would make, for me, would make me incredibly sad. But looking at a lot at our Instagram and Facebook feeds, you would think that we as humans sort of live these perfect curated lives because we only choose the best of what's there. But is what choosing the best really defines and tells a story of your life? It may be hard when you to put your finger on what makes a really good picture when you see it online or anywhere, but somehow you know what's a really good photograph when you're looking at it. And I challenge you to stretch yourself by what you're going to see, but I guarantee at least one of the things I'm going to be talking to you about today is going to resonate, and hopefully you'll take better pictures after doing this or after seeing this. So the basis of the whole session here is to take better pictures, and in service of making better memories of our little people in our lives, or just our memories in general. I will cover about 5 ways that you can make better images just by tricks of composition, just compositional tricks. So composition is the arrangement of all the elements that make up the scene in a photograph or in a work of art. There are guidelines, but there are no hard and fast rules. And once you know them, you get to break them. You can improve your composition by being thoughtful, bold, patient, and prepared to experiment. Give yourself grace, lots of grace and time. And the more you shoot, the better you'll get. And that really is a lesson for a life lesson for all things, that the more you do it, the better you'll get. This picture of Nate, I took a day or two into the pandemic when we're still looking joyful and happy. And when we thought that was going to be like maybe a week or two out of school, it gets progressively darker. So one of the first things that you can glean, and that's going to make your pictures immediately better, is thinking about simplifying your scenes. This is the easiest thing of all to do. By focusing on your subject and making the background less complicated, you're already helping the viewer understand the intent of what you're trying to do with your picture. This is one of my favorite photographers. This is Sally Mann. She, in her 1980s body of work about her children, also entitled Immediate Family, which I sort of stole the name because to pay homage to her, she's one of my biggest inspirations. She created this body of work of her children in the 1980s. She lived in Virginia, in the woods, and her children were often pictured in states of undress. They're these gorgeous, gorgeous pictures, all taken with an 8x10 view camera, which for you means that she really had to plan them. There's illustrations that she did beforehand to really plan it out because she couldn't snap, snap, snap. She had to be very intentional about what she was trying to do with her photographs and how she wanted them to look. So here in her photograph, Night Blooming Serious, she trains her camera only on the subject and the background appears blurred. That's something that you can do. So think about simplifying your scenes and uncomplicate your backgrounds. So it's funny, when I shot this image, I was clearly inspired by her in my brain, although I didn't really see it till the end. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of where that idea came from. So the trick that I'm using here is something that you can do. If you want to pick up your iPhone and take a look at your camera mode on your iPhones, there is a portrait mode, and that automatically is going to blur out the background by opening up your f-stop or your aperture on your camera. And this can also be done, obviously, this can be done on your 35mm camera. It's thinking about aperture. The bigger, the wider your aperture is open, the blurrier the background is going to get. The shallower the depth of field. So this is a little chart, and Leslie, I hope you're taking notes because there's going to be a test on this. This was the hardest for me to kind of wrap my head around because it kind of works counterintuitively. as so much of photography does. When I first started learning about what aperture and f-stops were, about if it's bigger, it's smaller, if it's smaller, it's bigger, it didn't quite make sense until you start actually making pictures. But the aperture of a lens indicates how much light is getting in.
Good.
Oh, go ahead and turn off your camera, who's ever chit-chatting. Or turn off your mic, unless you have a question. No. Measured in f-stops, these are inverse values as well as shown in the aperture chart below. The larger the aperture, the lower the f-stop. An aperture of 1.4 lets in more light than the aperture of f8. And so those of you with big cameras, I would suggest taking, one scene. It can be something that still, it doesn't need to be a child that's moving. Maybe it's a child that's sleeping, and play with the aperture and just see what it does. And you could automatically make it makes sense once you see how it works. But again, your iPhone will do this for you, and it's a great device to automatically make your pictures, bring them up a notch a little bit. So here is to give you an idea of what's possible. This was shot with my iPhone. This is baby Cora. I don't know if Selah's here. This is Selah's daughter. So this is the concept in action. The camera was on portrait mode, shot with an iPhone, focusing on the baby and not really caring much about the chaise lounge in the background, because that's sort of what it detracted from the person. So this is Nate. And this is another example that I'm concerned with, just his figure and the darkness of the background. On a side note, really thinking about time of day, photography is writing with light. And so, light is the main thing. So think about the time of day that you're shooting. Glow time is the best. So that's early in the morning or in the evenings, where it's at sunset, when the sun is setting, like after 4 o'clock. And depending on where you are in the United States or around the world, the light looks different at different times of day, depending on where you are. And the light in Florida is really different than it is here in New Jersey. And that really affected the way the pictures came out. But again, on portrait mode, thinking about focusing on the body and less on the nature that's in the background. So the next technique is rule of thirds. This is the most fun. And once you've sort of seen it, you'll never be able to sort of unsee it. This is the most fun trick because just by moving your camera slightly, the picture is almost always more interesting. The concept of off-center placement and giving your subject room to move within inside the frame. So kids are always in motion. Try to put the camera a little bit ahead of them. If they're running, if they're in motion, to give them room to move. So what some 35mm cameras will do, it will create that tic-tac-toe board inside, and you can line it up to help you create this sort of rule of thirds thing. Once you've been doing it for a long time, you may not need to use it anymore. But you position your subject on those lines and where they intersect. Here's another idea of how it's possibly to be used with the frame. And this is how putting it into practice in my very own house with amazing Gabe. So this is Gabe during the pandemic, and just by moving him to the bottom corner, it makes him appear smaller in the scene. And there's a balance of positive and negative space. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a bit, about positive and negative space. But there's space that's filled, the space that's filled with the subject is balancing the space that's completely empty, doing something a little bit more interesting with the photograph itself. So coming to Philadelphia, actually it's open now. Photographer Judith Joy Ross, she's having an exhibition at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. She does a lot of portraits. And what's interesting is here she's also using this rule of thirds. The camera is positioned on the vertical as opposed to the horizontal. But notice that the figure's face is not in the center of the frame. It's slightly higher. And I love the way you can really note the tension with the hands. And that's always something I try to photograph and, have in my photographs is details of hands and feet. Also keep in mind when you're photographing kids, and this is really for anybody, try not to chop off hands and feet. Like in the moment, you may not notice it, but like this picture, if you take your hand and kind of move it to where you can't see the kid's hands anymore, it looks really strange not to have the kid's hands there. There's something weird about that. And in here, she intentionally removed at least one of the hands. This is also Judith Joy Ross from her Waverly series in 1982. She also is using here, she's using this idea of simplicity, and also by pushing the background into a blur, and by using a wide aperture. So here's someone that some of you may recognize. This is Jack emerging from Rancocas Creek this past summer. This image was taken in part of a series I made for my Neverland series, which was part of my thesis body of work. So what I was thinking in this photograph particularly was thinking about myself. What if I'm not a mom? What if I'm a bystander? What if I'm Wendy or Tinkerbell and I'm not able to intervene on what these kids are doing, unable to stop them from what they're doing in the natural world? So I encourage you to try on a different persona or a different role, thinking of yourself sort of as an anthropologist when you're working with kids. Maybe they're not your kids. Maybe sometimes it makes it easier if they're not, just letting them kind of go and do their own thing, and you just kind of move around them instead of having them mug and smile for the camera. Here I blurred him out and the focus is the water, but the fact that he is just off center gives him room to move in the frame, and for the person taking it, maybe room to move to jump into the creek with him. Is everybody doing all right? Any questions, comments? I have a break, but I'm moving pretty quickly. So
this is great so far. Keep going.
Good. Who is that?
It's Jen.
Hi, Jen. Thank you, Jen.
I like the thirds. It's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. And once you see it, it's like, oh yeah, you'll begin to kind of figure it out.
I'm also now playing with my portrait mode, so thank you.
Yes, play with your portrait mode. You're like, oh yeah. I'm telling you, it makes it easier. There's also a feature on your camera. I'll show mine real quick. That for some reason, Mom, you always have your camera on, like this live mode. That takes many pictures. I don't know. It's this thing right here, this live mode little thing. You can click that or this thing here in the corner, this little circle, and it won't take 50 pictures. So you're not gonna run out of room on your phone as fast.
No, it takes a 1.5 second picture. It's like a little moving picture with the moving kids. You can actually then freeze a frame.
Right. And you can choose your best one out of those, which is interesting, but I don't know. I like to just kind of move and compose. So you can use it either way. But if you do a lot like that, it's just sort of eats up all the energy on your phone. So, and your phone also has lots of other fun things to do with it too. If you put it in portrait mode, it lets you play with, this is an iPhone. It lets you play with natural light, contouring light, lets you go to black and white, all kinds of fun things. So I encourage you to explore and play with your iPhones. They're super fun. And you can look really masterful by not doing a whole lot, which is really great.
My trick
to the next thing. Yes.
My trick to look like a pro with my phone is that one of the settings, you can have it display the grid as you're taking the picture. So if you want to position things along the lines, yeah, super easy.
What kind of phone are you using? Are you using an iPhone?
No, I have an Android. It's a Google Pixel.
Okay. So yeah, I was looking for that feature on the iPhone. I couldn't find it. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure I have to be a little bit smarter.
I have a Google Pixel too. Can you chat, put in the chat how you do that?
Sure.
Thanks,
Jess. Jesse is also a photographer himself. He's working on a new body of work. I'm really proud of him and excited. So the next thing, looking for lines and shapes. This is Nate and Lila. So lines help move the viewer around the picture frame and draw your attention to your subject. So also think about repetition of lines and shapes. Lines can either be real lines, as in the shape of his arms. So here, obviously the real line that's here, or an implied line, which is where a dark area is next to a white area that sort of creates this space, this shape that creates something that's not there, but it is there. That's something, that kind of trick that photography does. And art in general, when you put a dark color next to a light color, it creates that edge that's not really a drawn line, but a line that's created when two different tones meet each other. So note that one of the lines is his arms. The repeating triangles are made by his arms and the dog's legs. I mean, they're not exact triangles, but triangle adjacent. Here and here. Sort of the same shape as her head. Again, here. So going a little bit back in time, this is an image by Lewis Hine of a girl in a textile mill in the late 1800s. This is a very highly composed image. Lewis Hine also shot with a view camera. So again, he had to really plan these photographs. She is centered in the frame, but the lines created by the machine and the window still lead you to her face and her body. She is also beautifully illuminated by the natural window light. And that's always really something to consider. Again, you're writing with light. So really think about where your light source is coming from. You know, window light, natural light is like, is the best you can possibly get. It creates this, where the face appears, where it can appear round and not flattened out. Like flash tends to flatten things out. If you notice, if you want to experiment with flash on a scene versus natural light, you'll see that natural light is almost always a little bit better. But again, it depends on what you're looking for. Some scenes might require flash, and you can play with that. Of course, I got somebody at the door barking at me. See how long I can hold her off. But natural light, again, is almost always more interesting. So thinking about natural light, but also thinking about location. So this is Nate at the Contemporary Resort in 2017. So when you're on vacation, use the available architecture to make your photos pop. And, you know, going to places like Disney, I mean, they're a photographer's dream, because the resorts and the theme parks are designed for you to like just be part of that environment. And they want you to take plenty of pictures. So take the pictures of your kid on Dumbo, take them on Peter Pan's flight, take them, you know, eating an ice cream cone, but also look at the interesting spaces that are around that people aren't photographing their kids, that are equally as interesting, that might tell a better and more interesting story about your trip, you know, especially while they're running around waiting for the bus or whatever. You know, find the hidden locations like you're finding hidden Mickeys, and follow your kids around with the camera. And this is no matter where you are. They're going to get so used to it that they're just going to kind of go do their thing. You don't need to try to get them to smile all the time. They're going to get, you know, be careful how you ask because you're going to know at the back end that, you know, you had to really, you know, the horrible end that was in the back end when he was crying and whatever to try to get them to make that beautiful picture. So think about that and use that judiciously. So this is an image I made of the boys in 2020. It was a study for a painting. And I really wanted to make sure that the elements worked to make the painting dynamic. So I really was thinking about lines and shapes. The lines, the legs, I love the line of the leg here, meets his head, and really takes you both in and out of the frame, kind of creating that S curve. So not just faces, but think about skin folds. Thinking about skin folds and not being afraid to get close up. This is baby Emmy and from 2016. You know, I saw an exhibit in New York. I mean, I don't know, probably 20 years ago. And it was these close-up black and white pictures, close-ups of women's bodies, women who, you know, are like real women, you know, bigger ladies. And all it was these folds of these women's skin. And they were the most gorgeous, self-affirming pictures I've ever seen. They were just absolutely stunning. And, you know, not thinking about everything that has to do with like the body being skinny or thin, but the body being this beautiful, just figurative shape. And I was just really inspired by that. And I wanted to bring that to this body of work too. So again, lighting is key, as is having towels laid down under black fabric draping, because babies make messes. And there is always something interesting about images like this that document babies, but a little bit different than the ones that you typically see on the card that says, "Oh, look, my baby is in a basket with the flowers all around." I mean, come on, how realistic is that? I mean, they're beautiful, yes. But I mean, really, how realistic is that? And what are the images you want to remember of your baby from that time in your life? Like maybe that one perfect shot, but then like the 365 other days of the year and the 26 hours a day that you're awake dealing with baby. So that's just my humble opinion, my 2 cents. So the next thing is thinking about positive and negative space and balance, and thinking about the areas with subject and without subject. This is Moving Boxes in 2016. So I want you to, in this picture, thinking about that the empty space is important as the filled space, even the part with or without people, and even the part with my feet. So I was intentional about printing for the whites in this shot and letting the dark of the muddy puddle fall back. So there is a balance to the dark shapes and the light shapes of the within the frame. Also, the curve of the arch of his back is sort of opposite to the curve of the branch that's coming in onto the left of the frame. The picture was printed really big. It was taken with a Leica. So what Leicas are able to do, it's shooting, where your iPhones are shooting at like, I don't know, 4 megs, maybe. A Leica is shooting at like 80. And the detail that you're able to get and the juiciness in those dark areas really sometimes can make for all the difference. But this could have been shot on a pinhole camera. You can do the same thing. This is possible to do, or possible to recreate in your iPhone, just with some simple playing around with some of the features. You can do all this. Thinking here also about areas of dark and light, also off-center placement and simplicity. Thinking about also shooting, getting detail. I love the details in his hair, just the ringlets. I'm going to cry the day he cuts it. I won't even be able to. You're going to have to pick me up off the floor. It's going to be too much. So that's where we are with simplicity. With positive and negative space. We're going to move on to framing. So you're going to look for lines and shapes that create a frame for your subject. This is Nate at Little Gym when he was really little, when he was big enough to fit in those things, or little enough to fit in those things. So the frame can really be anything. In this case, it's those, whatever they are. Somebody knows what those are. Those things. That the kids play. And I just thought that was kind of fun to stick your camera in places that you wouldn't be expected to stick them in. So here we're actually using actual window frames. This is Jack at home from my COVID series. So when COVID happened, I was thinking about ways to document the kids and the kids in my life, and thinking about, what their experiences were at that time. And so I wanted to show that the spring was occurring on the outside, but that the kids were being trapped inside, and just for health reasons, to keep them safe. And each of the next several images uses that convention of doors and windows as the visual and metaphorical cage. But like going back to this one, but like in this particular images, the branches here are doing the framing work and leading you to the picture. Here it's actual windows that are doing the framing work and reflections. So people have said they thought this one was photoshopped. I assure you it was not. Jamie can attest, she was there. These are 2 others from that series. I was really looking at the reflections that were happening, as well as the borders that were occurring with the frames themselves, the physical frames. Obviously, I came up with this convention because I wasn't able to shoot the kids on the other side of the glass. So this was sort of the solution to that problem. And people were really great. I mean, once I started coming up with this project, and if you got an idea of something you want to do, reach out to your friend network, whether it's adults or children or animals or whatever. You'd be surprised how many people are more than happy to lend themselves to your project and to want to help you. I would highly recommend it. Highly recommend having a really good friend group too. Thank you all my friends who are here. Appreciate it. So mostly what I think some of you came here for really were about documenting the daily. and how to photograph children in your daily life, using these tools and techniques. And again, it's just really about practice. It's really about just shooting a lot and, making the camera just so much a part of your own body that they don't even recognize it's there. I mean, again, when they're older, they kind of are more aware of it. When they're little, they don't care. But this is kind of when the magic happens, when you start creating, just really telling stories with your pictures. And that's kind of where the fun comes in. So think about I'm going to show you a couple pictures. Just think about the rules that I'm using and when I'm breaking them. Nate and Pops. And think about also in this one, I love that he's has his bun. Think about costuming for kids, or rather lack of costuming. I mean, my kids would rather be naked than pretty much anything. Again, thinking about that, where your pictures are going to go if you show them in states of undress. But thinking about the things that are their favorite things, a favorite shirt, a favorite stuffed toy, like in this case. I mean, Bun shows up in a lot of the work. Taking them to places that you love and just letting them kind of go and be. Places I love, Target, and just letting them go and be. He really fell asleep in that cart. And I just really couldn't resist. All of you have children know this picture well. You only are as happy as your least happy child. I'm sure you can hear this picture where one child is incredibly happy and the other one just looks like they just want to fall off the horse. But I love the sense of line that's working in this picture, the frame of the pole that's keeping Nate in that specific frame where Gabe is just really being Gabe. And Nate has just had it. So, I got to this really fast. So here's the end up. And here's the end up. So thinking about what's working in your pictures and some of the roles. Simplicity, considering uncomplicated backgrounds. Rule of thirds, placing your subject high or low in the scene, rarely in the middle, and giving your subjects plenty of room to move. Lines, looking for lines that lead your eye around the frame, both real and implied. Positive, negative space, thinking about space within your images that balances with and without your subject. Framing, looking for devices that will create borders around your subject, whether they're natural borders like trees, or whether you're just kind of hugging a wall and the wall is part of that pushes you towards where the subject is. And again, it's really all about experimentation. Thinking about things about documenting the daily practices with the daily life of your children and the kids that you love in your life. Get down on their level, or don't. Shoot from up high or shoot down low. Really be ready for anything. I started carrying a hip pack, a fanny pack. So I have my car keys in it, my phone, and which is also my camera, and binkies and treats, because you never know when you need them. So, and always having your camera on you. Don't pressure your kids to smile or to be posy. Sometimes the best pictures come when they're unposed. Oh, was there a question?
You can be a part of it. If you'd like to come in.
Here's somebody to
you
chat.
don't want to be in the pictures.
You can turn your mic on. I don't know
You
whoever.
move up a little bit, or no?
And allow your kids to costume themselves, or don't.
No.
Because those are the pictures that you're going to look at when you're moving on to life. You're like, oh my God. And we had this in my family pictures. We were all wearing, mom, dad, you know this. We were in our blue shirts and our jeans, and everyone is happy. And my brother at 3 or 4 years old, what is he holding? He's holding his toolbox. So, I mean, let them hold the thing. It's going to be the memories that you have that keep them kind of tethered to that moment in time. Take pictures of them when they've done messed up things with their hair, or painted on their bodies. Those are the real juicy moments. Those are the real things that you're really going to want to remember, instead of these smiley things that you had to really extort your kids to actually have to do, or to go places to photograph them. And if all else fails, bribe away. My entire senior thesis work was sponsored in part by the McDonald's Corporation. So you're wondering how I was able to get Nathaniel to do all that he did? I promised the kid a Happy Meal and then some. I'm telling you, it works. It's like a charm. So I wanted to thank you for coming to my Live Thesis program. Are there any questions? What questions do you all have, or comments, or pictures you want to go back to and chat about? I didn't think I was going to go. that
Laura,
fast.
I was fascinated by the reflection images that you took during COVID. As you know, I'm into reflections, and they're just so well seen. The framing is fabulous. And then it seems like most of your photos have implied diagonal lines, which draws the viewer in and keeps the action going and keeps your eye moving around. This one obviously is dead center, but there is an implied diagonal that goes left to right, right to left, or whichever way you want it to be. And it's a wonderful program. I mean, I took notes, but I like taking notes. And yes, as much as I know about photography, I can always learn something from the best, and you are fabulous.
Oh, thanks, Les. From you, it is a compliment indeed.
So I'm going to set you up here with a softball question.
All right, go ahead.
You hinted at this with take lots of pictures, but what would you say is the ratio of pictures that you take to pictures that that you're showing off here?
Oh, want to see? Show you. You can see my screen.
Yeah, okay.
All right, hold on. You get to see. So when you were looking just at pictures of Leora, these are the ratio. This is what we're looking at. So it's shooting lots and lots and lots. I shoot, obviously I shoot in color, and I change things to black and white because it's just kind of my aesthetic. When you shoot color, you need to be, or just be careful with it, because be careful, but be aware of it and how color will affect the viewer. I mean, my boys have blue eyes. I like to put them in blue clothing, which makes their eyes pop if I'm shooting for color. That's just something I like to do. I love that she's in orange because everything else is like this, these beige behind her.
I don't think we're seeing what you're talking about.
Oh, you're not seeing it?
No, we're
No,
seeing
we
part
see
of your thank you.
page. It's a thank you page.
Oh no, you're not seeing this. Oh, wait a minute.
You started when your friend said, how many pictures does it take to get to the best one? And you said, let me show you.
And then you can't see it. There you go. There you go. Can you see it now?
No.
We're still seeing the thank you page.
Might be easier to say, I probably throw away 25 to 2,000 pictures for every good one that I keep.
Now? No?
No.
Well, I can't work. Anyway,
Okay.
Lots. Sorry.
Anyway,
Lots. So it's just something to think about, that, I mean, just because you're
Brian Singer, who knows a bit about this stuff, says from Brian Singer to everyone. Oh, what he just wrote something in the
show
chat
the whole
room.
screen, not the browser.
Yeah, there you go.
Better?
No. Brian, your toolbox really came in handy, didn't it?
Now?
No, he says LOL, hi.
Oh, well. Sorry. Listen, I had to get good at one thing, and that was Google Slide presentations, not Zoom. Still, after all this time,
No, but it's helpful to know, like, if you took 25 images to get that one shot to.
Yeah. I mean,
show.
it's like a lot. It depends. I mean, with photos like the one of Nate that you're looking at right now, you can see that one, right?
Yes, this one we can see.
Okay. So, I mean, this one was a one-off. Whereas, let's see. Uh-oh. Now we're out of this completely. Whereas
think
ones
what-
like these from this series, there were lots. I mean, like probably 30 to 40 pictures.
Yeah,
I
where
figured
I
I
was
had-
going was that the iPhone memory is cheap. You can take literally 1,000 pictures, delete 900 of them later on. No, it's no big deal. There's not a huge cost. This is not 1936 where we only get 6 exposures to capture the subject.
But I mean, just keeping that in mind, I mean, don't be so quick to delete everything. Because sometimes the really good stuff is like the ones you pick on the first pass through may not be, your good ones might be ones that are sleepers. So think about that. I mean, the one that's on the right here, you see my mouse move? With the 2 little girls, there's about a dozen versions of that picture, and one where it's just the girl's dress only and not the second little girl. So
I don't know if your screen's frozen. We're looking at that really cute picture with the ice cream. Still on the thank you screen.
is it scrolling through or not anymore?
No, it's just on that screen that like it hasn't moved at all.
Now?
No, the same screen. But
Oh, yeah. Oh, well. Well,
that's okay. It's like it's helpful to hear you like talk about it even.
I'm glad it's on the really good photograph, Nate.
He's so cute.
Let's see. I'm looking at the chat. Okay. I see. Any other questions or commentary? Anything I can answer for anybody about my practice?
Do you have any editing apps on your phone that you like to use?
I really just play. I mean,
You can just use whatever iPhone has.
I use iPhone with the iPhone has, but I also, when I'm in Instagram, I try to play around with those things sometimes. And that's just fun to do because you never know kind of what you're going to get with color or, with texture. You can really kind of play around with vignetting, which is making it darker and lighter around the edges and the borders of the pictures. So yeah, I play with that. But it's really hard once you've done it in Instagram to try to recreate that, like in Lightroom or in Photoshop. It's difficult because there's algorithms and whatever. Jesse, you would know more about this than I would. They got a whole thing there that's very hard to kind of reconstruct.
What
Yeah.
would be, you were talking about light, and I know how important light is in photography. When you're taking pictures like right at dusk, because I feel like the kids, like you were saying, like the kids are outside so frequently at that time of day. And the lighting, like the natural lighting just seems really rough and like it's too light still for the flash. What do you recommend for that time of day?
It really depends. I mean, you don't need to bring them directly. Excuse me. You don't need to bring them directly into the harsh light. Just so you can bring them, even the shadows in those spaces are really nice. Or even not at sunset itself when the light is really like that super golden, but like even before that, or like even after. Les, what would you say? You shoot a lot at that time in Florida.
But it's really difficult. I don't shoot children all that much, but yeah, the lighting is way too harsh during the daytime to get anything. And I really prefer lots of shadows because it just gives the images more depth and more interest if there's shadows, so that you get that with morning and evening, but you will not get that dead center in the middle of the day, especially in Florida when the sun is right over your head and everybody's frying.
Yeah, I mean, I would just.
I like the image, Laura, that you have. I think it was somebody's child climbing out of a river, and behind him, there's a wonderful, the grayscale is great because you have the reflection off the water, and that actually pops the child right out of it. It almost looks 3-dimensional. I don't think it was Gabe or Nate. I think it might have been somebody else's.
It's Jack.
child. Okay.
That's Jack Levine, my other amazing subject. That's
Yeah.
Nate's best buddy. So he's one of my lost boys.
Oh,
Thank you, Jamie, for letting me borrow your children.
wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it. I always learn something. And like I said, I'm learning from the best. So, and I wrote lots of things down because I always do. It's the only way that I remember anything. I was just wondering, I know I'm not really good at Photoshop and Lightroom. Do you ever use editing Nick Silver Effects Pro with your
Mm-mm.
black and white?
Mm-mm. I usually use, I mean, I learned to do editing on Lightroom, and I much prefer like the older versions of Lightroom. And for those of you who don't know what Lightroom is, it's like for more professional photographers, especially people who are shooting weddings and events where you have lots of pictures. It's a really great way to do batch edits, which is like rename all your photos like under one thing, or like do a specific action like turn the exposure up on like 100 pictures at one time, as opposed to doing things individually by hand. So it's and the edits that you can do are really beautiful and just really simple and pointed.
So you prefer regular Lightroom as opposed to Lightroom Classic?
Yeah, like the most basic version. Listen,
Right.
I learned Photoshop on Photoshop version 1, literally version 1. And that's pretty much, and because I'm old now, I don't have any interest in like kind of learning Photoshop for me right now is exhausting. And they've made it so incredibly difficult because there's too many bells and whistles. They need to take it back to things that are really just simple, like what you would basically do in a darkroom. They've made it like, I mean, photographs today, when you look at them, you know, they're so way processed, like, whoa. I mean, like people just go nuts and they look that way. They look fried in the darkroom, or like the darkroom. And it's really, I don't know if it's really, everything looks like it's AI. You know, when something's been over photoshopped, it looks
AI,
like
for
it's,
people that don't know, is artificial intelligence, which is really making the new photography even crazier because now you really don't know what you're looking at.
yeah. No AI was used in the making of these, I assure you. That's a whole nother lecture.
All right, well, I'm signing up for your anybody wants to sign up for Laura's tutorial on Lightroom, basic Lightroom. I'm
Oh,
already
God, no.
signed up. So Emily, you can sign up too.
Well,
I
I will
can't
say,
do anything. I'm very proud of you, Miss Laura.
thanks,
As we
Mom.
all are.
You didn't learn a thing about photography from us because we took 1 million pictures and none of them were very good, but it's still nice to have photos. I like it. So
Well,
I love you.
I will say, so if you would like to email me with your actual mailing address, I'm going to be sending everybody who participated and came today a photograph from my series that was just put up on display. So if you're in Jersey, I'll hand carry it to you. If you're other places, I will actually put it in the mail and send it to you. But I want to thank everybody for coming. Your commentary was great. Thank you for being part of the work and the work that has been my work.
Laura, call your brother and tell him what dodging and burning means.
He doesn't care. Do you, Brian? Love you. Thanks,
Love
everybody.
you.
Good to
Thank
see
you so
all.
much. Brava, brava.
Jesse, where are you? Awesome,
Congrats,
Jesse.
Laura.
Now and
Bye.
ever.
Thanks, Laura. This was great.
Crystal, good to see you. All these old faces, young old faces.
I was
I
gonna
feel
say,
like-
who you calling old there?
Young old faces. Hi, Phil and Mike. Love you.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
Boo.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
Phil.
Bye,
Bye,
love.
bye,
Everybody.
everybody. Thanks
Catch you
again,
here
Laura.
under
You're
an hour.
fabulous.